Hey, how's it going? Matthew here, aka EZBOT, back with another live stream from the home studio. Another episode of Elektron Talk, episode 22. We just are never gonna stop, ever. Today what we're gonna do is I'm gonna perform some of my current live set and kind of like talk about these tracks a bit because I'm gonna usher them out and start working on a new set. So I'm going to start new projects on every single one of these machines, start sampling new sounds, because kind of the workflow for me has been that I sample a bunch of sounds from different synthesizers, like, you know, the modular, which is normally a Prophet 5 sitting back there, but the Prophet 5 is sitting over on the other side of the wall right now because I wanted to play with my modular more. I have the Polyant Play over here. We have my little vocal skiff. Let's see if I can show it to you. Yeah, so I even can move the camera, which is cool. So we can, you know, pop over there for a bit when we need to. But yeah, so that's kind of the idea here, is that I'm just going to kind of dive through some of my music that I play live. It's all done with the Octatrack using my performance template, Digatone, and Syntact. And I'll kind of talk about my whole workflow and why I use these machines and what I use these machines for explicitly, why I use the Octatrack, what I use it for explicitly, why I use it the way that I use it, because there's so many different ways to use the Octatrack. I'm going to cover all of that in this stream. So let me quickly invite some of my homies from my Discord over to the stream because, yeah, it's always a good time to have your friends around, right? So give me 1 second. Hopefully the sound is good. If anybody could let me know how the sound is, that would be super useful. All right, let's grab this keyboard. And boom. And yes. Okay. That should be that. I see there's some folks in here, according to the analytics that I'm seeing. Circo, what's up, my dude? You know what, Circo? Since you're here, and I was actually thinking about reaching out and saying hello to you because I've been working on the new techno template, which is partly why we're letting go of what we have. What the set that I have now is because I'm going to build the new set. They're permanently built into my template. So when I make templates on the Octatrack, I save them as a new project and I start tweaking them from there. Not just using it like a performance mixer, I'm also using it as a sequencer. I'm sequencing the effects in my performances. What's up, Michael? What's up, Seth? What's up, Fo? Good to see y'all. Welcome. What I wanted to say, Circo, is the first effect, besides high pass, low pass filter, that I built in the techno template on part 1, scene 1, would be the Circo riser. So expect to have a couple of variations of that. Since we're doing 64 different effects, all just based around whatever I can gather, all the data I can gather from people. I've been asking people what they think the most effective effects are in for techno production, and you know, the best answers I'm getting are, of course, filters, filters, delays, long reverbs, stuff that builds up. Odd time, somebody mentioned today, Brian mentioned in the Discord, like having odd timed effects, like maybe stutter effects that aren't so on the beat, but yet still on the beat, maybe on the 3s or, you know, odd time beats. And chorus and phaser and flanger, right? So those are the effects that I'm going to play with and do as much as I can to make this as unique as possible and as useful and cool as possible. And kind of what I did is I did retire the having multiple tracks of flex tracks for recording. So typically in this current template that I'm working on right now, track 5, 6, and 7 do some live sampling, and they do 4-bar loops of live sampling, and you engage them just by hitting the yes button, depending on how your Octatrack is set up. If it's set up the other way, there's only 2 ways it can be. You hold this down and hit yes, and that will engage the one-shot record trigs that are kind of hidden on the recorder trig track. And this one would record a 4-bar loop of inputs A and B, which would be this machine here, and this one would record a 4-bar loop of these 2 machines, or inputs C and D, so the melodic side of things, and then this one records a master of everything, including all the effects that you're processing live. And that's how it's always worked, and that's what I've usually done. But for the techno side of things, I think some of that is not as useful, because I was doing some really strange and kind of otherworldly effects using lots of reverses and repitching of stuff, and all of it sounded really cool, but as far as techno explicitly goes, I don't think those effects are as useful. They're a little too based around melody. And so I think that we want more effects that are more based around carving sounds out and making more of a grit and more of a build-up, because at least that's just what I'm thinking. So this is an opportunity. This is a forum for people to tell me what they think about that idea and the kind of effects they think should be in that template. Go ahead and join my Discord. There is a channel in there dedicated to it. I would love to hear everyone's feedback on that, because I take it very seriously, and I will implement that stuff into the Octatrack, because the Octatrack does give you enough effects. And on the way I'm designing the new template, or have designed it already, is that there is, on the percussive side / sample side, in the way that I've built it, there is going to be a serial chain of 6 insert effects in a row on top of a master track. So that's a total of 8 effects that I can work with in serial. So it's a lot. There's a lot of filters, delays going into reverbs, the stereoizer. I always call it stereoizer. I don't think that's what it's actually called, but I love the way it sounds because it makes this car plus strong type sound. So it's going to be really cool. Yeah, so it is going to be more effects based around rhythm rather than melody. That is 100%. It's going to be based around carving sound out rather than melody. Melody is something that is very near and dear to me, and I have a hard time escaping. So this is a real challenge for me, because I come from a very musical background. I played guitar and sang, and some piano, but I was a singer-songwriter, and for me, I'm always looking for resolution. Techno, resolution, not so much. The resolution is more like crescendo. It's more like just getting through a build-up, bringing stuff out and bringing stuff back in. And that's just different than what I naturally gravitate towards, which is melody. So I usually start with something super melodic, and that's what you're going to hear when I play some of these tracks. So I'm going to play some tracks for you. I'm going to talk about these tracks. These are some of my favorite music that I've ever written on the Elektron boxes. I love it all dearly, and I don't plan on not playing it. But when I start a new set, I start new projects, and the idea behind, or my idea with music production, is that when I have a project, I match all the projects by name, and we start on bank A, pattern 1, and we start from there, and we start going through banks and filling up banks with patterns, and that's what I intend to do. So maybe by the end of the stream, we'll start working on something. Of course, I'm still going to include a good amount of melody into my music production, because I can't really help it. I really do like it, but my plan is to go a little bit darker, and yeah, so that's the idea. I will be using my vocal skiff, my vocoder skiff. You can have a little listen to it. Let me see. Here's some vocoding. Here's some sweet vocoding. And that's coming from the voice modular vocoder and the Polycinematic by Nobula. So I'm using the Polycinematic by Nobula to be my exciter for my voice modular vocoder, because it needs a synthesizer input, and I love the sound of chords with voices, because I'm very influenced by that disco, Daft Punk era of electronic music. I do love techno and dub techno, but I really love that Italian, French house, that kind of stuff. It really, I don't know. I just really like it a lot. But so I'm gonna play some tunes that and I'm gonna screw them up. They're not gonna be perfect. When I do record like a tension and release, yes, exactly. When I do record tracks and I put them on like YouTube or something, I usually play them several times, and the take that goes on YouTube is just like the best take that I could do before I got exhausted from doing takes over and over, because it's super hard. In fact, just brief discussion. So I just played a show a couple of days ago, and I've been super busy. I own a cable company, Modbang. These are my cables. These are my new slim right angle cables. You'll be seeing these in shops soon. They are perfect. I designed these myself. They're so amazing. I'm so stoked. Plus, these are my MIDI cables. These are glow-in-the-dark MIDI cables, and you'll be able to get those in like a week or two. So, yeah, look out for that. I'm really excited about that. I worked for 6 months to design these cables from scratch, and yeah, so you'll get to check it out, and hopefully you like them. They're all very slim and performative. But as I was saying, I own my cable company, and then I work for Patchworks full-time synthesizer shop, where I'm the video producer there and the affiliate manager. And then I do EZBOT and run my Patreon and play a show every month. I always play a show every month because I have a residency with these 2 bars in Seattle. And so I just always have an opportunity to play a show, and I'm looking for local artists, and I bring a new artist in every show. Except for this next show, I'm just having a bunch of my coworkers, and they're all amazing live performers. They really are. They're just top tier live hardware performers, and we're all going to play January 31st at the 4Bs in Ballard or in Wallingford. I don't know. One of those two. They're like the same thing to me. Here in Washington State, in Seattle, essentially. So I haven't had a chance to write that much new music, but I really do. I feel like for me to write some new music, I have to give myself a deadline. So I have this show coming up. I'm going to have to write, at least 30 minutes of new music for this show. Okay, I just remembered where I veered off and talked about some other stuff. So I just played the show, right? And as I was saying, I've been super busy. So I typically like to practice a good amount before I play a show, even if it's songs that I've played a million times. It doesn't matter how many times I've played them. We have how many tracks here? A lot. We have a lot of tracks here. We have 24 tracks of audio on these machines. Not that I'm using all 24 tracks all the time, because that can be a really gnarly mess, but there's 24 tracks of audio available to be used, and I have to remember where is what. So I try and keep my drums always on my Dig Attack. Vocal samples, of course, have to be here. The only reason they have to be here is because the sample tracks on the Octatrack are being used in my current setup for resampling, so I can't load any sounds onto my Octatrack. Otherwise, totally doable. You can just get rid of track 5 and 6 in my template, and I do have a version of it that comes with the download that has 5 and 6 empty, and you can load samples and sample onto it. But anyway, drums and vocals, chords for sure, because the Digatone can actually do chords. Sometimes we're doing chords here from a sampled synthesizer, like a Prophet or something nice, a nice sounding synth. Over here we have a chord engine, but we don't want anything to do with it. Like not that sounded bad. I don't want to use it as my chord source because it's a paraphonic chord source. It's a pad, in my opinion. It's more like meant to just sit in your track. And yeah, I do have some songs where I really use it like an upstroke guitar chord movement. But I do think that it's a cool feature to have, but it's not what I would choose to have for my chord generation. This has true polyphonic chord generation, and you can get some pretty close to like sawtooth sounds, square wave sounds out of it. And of course, you can get all the crazy FM sounds that you want. Plus, it has chorus, reverb, and delay. We don't have chorus here. We don't have chorus here. We only have it here. And I do love chorus on chords and such. So, and not to mention, the analog side here, if I wanted to do some synthesis here, we do only get the one filter unless we run it through the effects track. And then you're using your effects track on just one sound. And maybe that's not a bad idea, and often that is how I do it. But I do love the idea of having the dual filters. It makes a really big deal with your live performances to have more than one filter because, for instance, say you have a snare, right? We have this snare here, and if I go into my filter, I haven't used the bass width filter on this yet, so this is something I forgot, but I would do it if I hadn't forgotten. So maybe if I carve off this low end on the snare, maybe it doesn't sound any different to you audibly, like you're like, I don't really notice any difference. But the truth is those frequencies below, this certain frequency that it's representing, it's giving you 0 to 127. So I don't know what 35 or 37 actually means. It means something in an EQ, but I'm not sure what the exact number is. Maybe it's in the manual. Actually, I haven't looked. But if I remove these frequencies here, on any track that this doesn't actually affect the timbre of the sound, I'm actually clearing space in my mix. And for a live show, big deal. That's a huge deal. Because we need space in our mix when we're playing live hardware. So this is one of the disadvantages of playing live hardware is that, for one, it's not a fully cooked track, right? It's happening right then and there, and we have all sorts of problems that can happen. We can press the wrong buttons, we can bump knobs. This stuff happens all the time for live shows. You have to learn all these things to work your way around it. You avoid doing lots of cool things you would normally do at home because you're playing a show with hardware and you're afraid that you're gonna screw up. That's what happens to me. I'm like, I don't really want to touch that because what if I can't get it back, Or what if I do a control all movement on one of the Elektron boxes and I do it twice in a row on accident? Where am I now? I can reload the pattern, I can reload the project. So there's some stuff that you can do, but if you're not fast about it, you're just gonna get flustered. And I've gotten flustered a bunch of times, and that's what happened at the last show that I played. And when I go out and I talk to the locals that show up at every show, they can't hear that I was flustered. They just heard my music, and maybe it sounded different than another time they've heard my music. But they don't know that what happens to you internally when things don't work out the way you expect them to in a live show is it's like a train derailing. It's like an emotional train derailing, and you go into this space where now you're worried, what is happening? Where am I at? And all of a sudden I lose track of what is important. I lose track of all these things that I meant to do. I have techniques that I do to move from one pattern to the next that sound good. I have to be on a certain effect on the octatrack. I have to have muted or unmuted a certain part of a song on the digitact and the digatone and the syntact. I have to be in all these specific places for things to work out exactly the way I want. And if I can't think clearly, I don't get there. And that's what happened in the last show. I didn't get to where I wanted to go. I did manage to pull off one thing that I do like to do at every show, and it's just easy for me to pull off at this point. And it's going to be the first track that I share with you tonight. It could be the only track I share with you tonight, depending on how long it takes for me to actually stop blabbing. Because I'm very chatty when I do these Elektron talks, when I do these live streams. You maybe saw in the thumbnail, I don't have it called Elektron Talk on the thumbnail because I don't know. I don't always want to talk about Elektron gear. I do want to talk about some other stuff. I do have the Poly in play here, and I've gotten to know it really well, and I'm working on a video for it right now. And I want to discuss its value as a live performance drum machine, and maybe it won't have very much to do with anything Elektron related. So I'm kind of playing around with the idea of just calling it, EZBOT Live or something. And there's other machines, like the Oxy One I have over here, which I'm all over the place with how I feel about that machine. And of course, modular synthesis, which I have put more money into than any of the stuff you see in front of you. I have an abundance of modular here that I don't really do much when it comes to streaming. And that's partly because live modular either just is silly sometimes, or it can just totally suck. And watching people noodle on a modular synth is just a lot of the same sounds over and over again. And I think that that's not always fun. So you're loving the Oxy One the more you use it. That's great to hear. So we're using the Oxy One today as a chord generator with the vocoder, and because it has the intelligent chording that it can do, and it's really cool. I mean, I could show that off to you. That's what this moving camera is all about, man. So the Oxy One has the ability to use this intelligent chording. It's called, I don't know, it's intelligent harmony. So it's trying not to create parallel fifths. It's trying to like move some notes up octaves or down octaves. I'm not exactly sure what they're doing, but I do know that it's avoiding a lot of things so that there's harmony between these chords. So if I take this patch cable out from here and we just go straight out of here, let's see. So without using the vocoder, we're looking at the polycinematic, and we're going to use the intelligent chording. So on the Oxy One, you're able to choose 4 different kinds of sequencers per track. You have 4 tracks. One of the tracks can be a drum sequencer, which is like a multi-sequencer. So you can have one sequencer that could sequence all the gear in your studio if you wanted. But this one in particular is a chord sequencer. It's the one that I end up using the most. I will answer that question. Hang on, Seth. So let me show this really quick, and I'll come back to that about the chord bot, because I do have a chord. I was one of the first people to get a chord bot. I have an OG black chord bot. They don't even make chord bots anymore, I don't think. If they do, they just make the white version. And I've thought about selling it for some time, but then like there's just not much stuff out like it, and the stuff that is out, like the chord bot, is really expensive. This is $750. There's another theory board like the chord bot. It's like $1,000 or something. I don't know. It's a lot, but the only thing that's affordable that kind of does what the chord bot does is the KeyStep 37. And it still doesn't do what the chord bot does. The chord bot does a lot more than the KeyStep 37 does, just by leagues. But if you needed something to generate chords for you and do some intelligent harmony, the KeyStep 37's got you covered. But this thing does an even better job. It's very clever. One of the things I really like about it might be a little hard for you to see, but there's 8 CV outputs and 8 gate outputs. And as you can see, there is no power cable connected to the Oxy One. This is running on battery right now, and I hope that it doesn't die. But I don't think it will, because the battery's supposed to last, I don't know, like 12 hours or something. And I've never had it die, but I usually have my stuff charging. Anyway, so here we are playing with the polycinematic, which I think is an okay polysynth. This is not like the polysynth you buy. If you want to buy a polysynth, like buy a lot of other polysynths before you buy this one. But if you want a polysynth that fits in a Eurorack case, and in this case, this works really well for me because it acts as the exciter for my vocoder. So I'm gonna give this a little release so we can hear these chords, but see if you can hear the intelligent harmony. We're on a minor 13 chord in the key of C, I think. And it's going to use the shape of the minor 13 chord, and it's going to move around and keep it in harmony in a good way. Well, do I have it on? Modifiers muted. Okay, we're somewhere. I know that sounded like whack. I was like, it's gonna sound so good. It didn't sound good, but it should sound good now. I had some settings not set up the way I wanted it to. Okay, so check us out. That one sounds a little funky. I don't know if that's from I don't know why that is. So it just has a billion chords you can choose from. We could go to another chord. We have inversions. That's how easy it would be to write a song. Da, da, na, 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 na. Piece of cake, right? You don't even have to try. Sounds awesome. So it works really well as my chord synthesizer for my vocoder explicitly. And this works really well for that intelligent harmony. It makes it so that I don't have to brush up on music theory and grab a MIDI keyboard and try and express those chords over a MIDI keyboard because I suck at playing piano. I mean, I'm okay, I could learn songs, but I'm not a piano player. You know, I can write stuff on the keyboard just fine, like where it does great for my music production. But if somebody was like, hey, will you go play this song for me on there? I'm like, I know a couple Radiohead tracks, but that's about it. So yeah, I really like the Oxy One for this. I don't like, it's hard. I mean, it's for you, you can't really hear this, or I mean, you can't really see this, but these buttons right here, they are right in front of the screen. And when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at it from an angle. I'm not looking at it like you're looking at it from a camera. And so I block the view all the time. So the UX on here, not great. Its functionality, pretty cool. UX, personally not a big fan, but maybe Oxy 2 will happen and that will be super dope for us. All right, let's move back over. You know, actually, while we're over here, we have the Paulian Play, and I have it connected to my modular system. That's the new Platts firmware. Sounds great. So I'm a big advocate for the Moog Mavis. And one of the things that I like often say why I think the why the Moog Mavis is so great. Well, of course, it's because it sounds amazing. That's why I love it. But one of the things I advocate for the Moog Mavis for is because it stays in tune. And it does just fine. The only problem is getting it to the pitch you want it to be at, like getting it to, like if I'm tuning to 440 or if I'm tuning to 262, if I'm tuning to a C, C1 or whatever, then like turning that knob to get to 262 or 440 is just a god-awful experience. I would never want to do that on stream or at a show, ever. If I bumped my tune knob on that, it would be just like, all right, I'm done using that synthesizer, straight up, because it would just be too much of a pain in the ass. So yeah, so that's like why I maybe I wouldn't even use it. Maybe I just like buy another, like a Platts clone and just have like 2 Platts or something for a show and just use the Mavis in the studio. I don't know. I'm back and forth with that one because I really love its sound, but dude, tuning your oscillators, I hate tuning my oscillators. And I do have a Endorphin's autopilot, which is great for people who hate tuning their oscillators because it'll just keep it in tune, but it's like, maybe I should just use the autopilot and then I can just shut up about it and then I can do it whatever I want. Check out Endorphin's autopilot. Can't say enough good things about that. I hate tuning oscillators. I hate it. All right, I'm gonna take a look at this chat. Calderwood, what's up? Yo, the party can start now. What's up, dude? Yes, we are partying super hard. It is the new year. New you. As you can see, I shaved my mustache. That's like new year, you know, I do the mustache like the last half of the year, and now I'm like, I really felt like I'm 38 years old, and I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh shit. It's like, you look like you're like 50, dude. My beard's so gray and the mustache is so thick and just like my hair grows so coarse that I was like, oh dude, I'm not feeling like a youth at all. And I really wanted that back. So here I am. What am I, 28 again? Maybe? 10 years off? Sure looks like 10 years came off. I think. Okay, but I love parallel fifths, says Levy. You know what? So do I. So do I. I'd use parallel fifths all day. Absolutely. That's not that's just a rule in school, man. Parallel fifths is just the school rules. All right, so here we are, back to Seth. Seth says, how does the Oxy compare to ChordBot for chords? Well, I think they both have similar amounts of chords. I think the ChordBot still beats the Oxy One in terms of the actual amount of chords, but the ChordBot doesn't have intelligent harmony like the Oxy One does, and the ChordBot doesn't have CV and gate. So, but in terms of actual amounts of chords, the ChordBot does beat out the Oxy One. It has more options for chords. It just has all of them. It's a lot easier. I still haven't figured out on the Oxy One how to choose how many notes are being played. Because right now it has all these different inversions and open and all sorts of stuff for your chords, but I haven't figured out how to have it be, just the 4 notes of the major 7 chord, or just the 3 notes of a minor or major chord. Like, I just want those 3 notes. I don't want the octave, like 3 octaves up of like the 5th and the root. Like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what to do. I figured it out. And that's something like that's so easy on the ChordBot and so easy on the KeyStep 37, frankly, to be honest. It's a piece of cake. It's literally right on the knob. You just turn it. It just says notes, like bam. It's so easy. It's not so easy on the Oxy One. So I have if I was doing like an honest review of it, I would be like, I like it. It's not perfect, but I like it. That's where I'm at. I do want to do some reviews because I think we need some honest reviews, but the reviews just for hardware performance. Just for hardware performance, because I don't want to like chip away at companies and be mean to companies. I love companies. I have I have nasty things to say about the Octatrack. Like, I mean, who doesn't? The thing's insane. But I also, I love it. I love it so much. But I think that we need to talk about this stuff and have some somebody in the YouTube space who is telling you the truth about what's going on, rather than just being like, this thing's super dope. Which is what most folks do. They just show you how to use it and then say it's great for this and that. But is it great for live performance? That's what I want to know. That's all I want to know. Can I play with it live? If I can't play with it live, I don't want to play with it at all. For real. That's just how I feel. Unless it's a keyboard synth. That's different. If it's a keyboard synth, I want to sample it into my samplers, into the M8, into the Octatrack, into the Digitact. If the Poly and Play could sample, damn man, if the Poly and Play could sample, there's a whole video. That's a whole discussion. Talk about the Poly and Play and what it can do so well and what it doesn't do, and I could talk about that forever because I really do like it a lot. I have a couple of gripes with it, but I do like it, and I do think it's good for live performance. And when I do finally present you with this video with my absolutely honest information about how well it would be for a live performance tool, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how would you play with it live? Are you going to screw up with it all the time? Is it got cool effects? We'll dig into that. Calderwood, been on the fence about selling the PE for a Syntact. The PE? What's the PE? The lack of audio over USB is kind of killing your vibe. I feel you on that, dude. What is the PE? Tell me. Calderwood. Bad Lucks. New to Elektron with the Syntact, loving it so far, just trying to wrap my head. Oh, Poly and Play. Got it. Wrap your head around the workflow. Yeah, well, we're gonna talk a little bit about workflow. This is, this is kind of like, this is a chatty show where I talk a lot. Sometimes we make music for an hour, but yeah, we'll talk about the workflow. And just for you, Bad Lucks, just for you, we'll talk about the workflow. I don't find Elektron sequencers inspiring, but they don't hold you back. Good. That's a good comment. Yeah. Lot to unpack right there. Because you're saying that because of the poly and play. Because you're talking about the poly and play and Elektron and the comparison of the sequencers. When the sequencers are very similar, almost identical, but because they do have trig conditions and all that jazz, like everything that you have over here, you have on the poly and play and the tracker, but more on the poly and play. But yeah, over here, these boxes, they don't do any hand holding. They don't help you other than the digatone. Well, actually, they did do some hand holding. They did add the. Oh my god. Let's just go into here. They did add the keyboard function. I forget, it's just the button press on there. That's why. They did add this. We have keyboard scaling now. And I love that. And keyboard folds, so super dope. So they do hold your hand there. But the digatone actually does chords and has an arpeggiator. And arpeggiators are pretty much holding your hand, right? They're doing all the hard lifting for you. You don't even have to think. You just mash notes and be like, I like it. You don't got to know anything at all. Just, how does it sound to you? Sounds good? Sick. Circo, that's why I try to include who it's for and who it's not for when you talk about gear. Yeah, well, that's good. Your channel is very much about that too, and I do like it when you talk about that stuff. And I do like it when anybody talks about who's it for, but also, I don't know. I mean, when you do it, sure. Because I know what you do. I know that you're all about playing live shows. I'm not always all about like everybody expressing who they think this piece of gear's for if they're not using it to play shows. Like how do you know who it's for? You just know that it's good in your room, and then you can make that assumption for other people that may have like skill beyond that, or like not skill beyond the room, but just skill beyond your own. Not you, Circo, but in general, I just mean YouTube as a conglomerate with how much video content gets generated for electronic music gear. And there's a lot of it. But I do like it when somebody is a live performer and they're all about something specific, like techno, for instance, like with your channel. It's very cool. Yeah, so the way you get there, so good call, good idea, good thinking. I'm all over the place with that. Callerwood. Yeah, when you're talking about, by the way you get there is very different with electronic play. That's right. And I do think that's because the play has some stuff that's super weird and like can get a little hard to handle, right? The pick and place. So on Elektron gear, so when talking about that workflow, we're talking about you, Bad Lucks. On the Elektron workflow, you have tracks, and those tracks have a default sound assigned to the track. So if I'm looking at a kick drum on my Digitact, it's gonna play a kick drum, right? The poly and play, if I go over to a track, it's not gonna play a kick drum. It's not gonna be a kick drum track. It's gonna be the last sample that I used. That's gonna be the sound that it's gonna be used, because the poly and play just gives you a grid and you do whatever you want with that grid. But it also has all these amazing features, really quite amazing features, to fill the grid for you and help you get going, and also help you pick samples, which is pretty cool. And I really love it. I really do think it's super cool. I've been emailing with them, asking them, and they've been actually very responsive and actually doing some of the stuff I've asked. I can't say what it is because like they're gonna have their firmware releases, and I can't spoil that for them. But they are listening. They're listening to the users and what they want. But something I do want, and I don't know if they're going to do, is I want cycling sample playback on the poly and play. Give me that. Give me envelopes and give me LFOs. But if you're not going to give me envelopes and LFOs, give me cycling samples. I don't know why it doesn't have it. I don't see why it doesn't. It should. Like, play if it can play in reverse, it should have a loop point somewhere for samples to loop. Like, they can't loop. So that part I find is a little strange to me. I want cycling samples, because then I can use a single cycle waveform and I get a synthesizer. I get essentially a polysynth if I want. And I think that's really useful. Yeah, where's the right angle Modband cables for your tact boxes to save space? Yeah, we'll get there, dude. We'll get there. I actually thought about designing one that was just for these boxes, but we'll get there. Ever run your OT in the end of chain compressor or something, trying to figure out a chain end of chain something for my play and modular for live rig? So I do run all of my gear into an end of chain compressor. I have a bus compressor. I have the SSL Big 6, and it runs into a bus compressor. I do have it turned off right now because I was noticing it was just turning down other machines in my studio, because I was turning one up just because I wanted to hear it louder, and it turned the other one down, and I was like, oh god. So I just turned off the compressor for the time being. But typically, when I am like doing a YouTube video or preparing for performance or something, or writing music, I do like to write with the bus compressor on just a little bit. Give everything some nice levels. Make some drums pop. Yeah, you've been thinking about the auto boom. Yeah, get the auto boom. I had one short temporarily. So here's the thing. When you get a bus compressor, if that bus compressor doesn't have if it has a sidechain input, then yeah, you can buy a little high pass filter and you can use the sidechain input. But that's a pain in the ass, straight up. That's just annoying, and you have to buy these weird. It's ugly. It's an ugly experience. But if you get like something like the Warm Audio bus compressor, which is what I would recommend, even though I haven't used it, I just recommend it based on what I've been looking at, and I've thought about buying it several times. And that's because it has the features that I would want in a price point that I think is pretty fair. It's like under $800. It has a sidechain filter built into it, and you want that sidechain filter because these bus compressors or limiters, they are going to kill your transients, and they're going to suck out your bass on your kicks. So if you're playing live electronic music, especially, that's what I mean to say, especially, then you don't want to lose your kick. Your kick's a big part of your music, right? If you're playing, techno house or whatever, you want to have your kick. So you got to be really careful. That auto boom, my experience with it was that it was, even on the lowest compression settings, I kind of felt like it was over compressing. But I was also pretty new to what I was doing at the time. I mean, this was a while ago. Back more closer to when I was transitioning from playing more acoustic instruments into the electronic music world, when I was trying to like mash the two together and not really having an idea of how to do that. And I'm still working on that. It's a process for sure. The auto boom does a really great job at warming. Yes, it does. I mean, you have the analog heat too. Both of them are very expensive. Analog heat, way more expensive than the auto boom. I do think the analog heat sounds better than the auto boom in terms of coloring your sound. I think the auto boom, or whatever, is very gritty. And there's just way more distortion because the analog heat has a dry mix and a wet amount separate from each other. So you can dry mix between a percentage of wet. That's unique. You don't see that in many other boxes. And that makes it really usable. So you can just dial in just the right amount of distortion for your music to the point that you could distort your entire mix and have it sound good. Like it's just coloring your sound. You can't do that on the auto boom. So that's just something to think about. And yeah, and the boom's probably hardly ever available. I have seen it at Perfect Circuit a few times. Yeah, FMR and RNP. FMR and RNP, basically the same unit. RNP a little bit more coloring than the FMR. FMR is very clean. RNP not as clean, so it can distort a little bit. But the RNP is probably the one I would go for, just strictly because its purpose is limiting versus compressing, and versus being a bus. It's more of a bus compressor than the FMR is. They're both really affordable and pretty freaking great, so I'd recommend either one of them. Both have a sidechain input, which you can use with these cheap little high-pass filters you can find on Etsy or Reverb, which is where I find them. Thomas David, can you run the performance template and still trigger other saved loops in the OT? Perhaps with the tap of one of the sequencer buttons, depending on which loop wants to trigger. Let me reread that a couple of times so I can see if my brain understand what you're saying here. Can you run the performance template and still trigger the other saved loops in the OT? Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't. Perhaps the tap of one of the sequencer buttons, depending. So I'm not into that idea. The tap of the sequencer buttons, I don't know. I mean, you could do that. Yeah, you would just be triggering a loop, and you can set that trigger to only trigger quantized. So yeah, you could, and that is actually. So the reason I said I'm not so into that is because that workflow with the Octatrack where you're triggering loops by just hitting one of these buttons. These are your MIDI buttons, by the way. These audition the MIDI tracks. These audition your audio tracks, which to me is always super backwards that the audio's over here and MIDI's over here. But anyhow, you could, have your tracks play that way. But typically that's how people do when they're DJing with the Octatrack. So if you DJ with the Octatrack, you can have these buttons be the slots in your Octatrack, and you can just play a song. You can just go start song 2, start song 3, blah, blah, blah. So that's one way of doing it. But I think if you're doing loops that way, I don't know. I don't think it would be great with the template, The template is meant to, the purpose of it is to incorporate your external gear. I don't know. I guess I don't do that. So it's hard for me to answer that question because it's not something I do. I seen a heat sold $400 a few weeks ago on Reddit. That's a steal, dude. I hope it works. What's your goals for 2023? Oh man, that's a loaded question too. I want to ride a new set, which is what I was intending on doing tonight. I want to play a show every month, which is already what I've been doing for the last 6 months, so that's going just fine. I'll just keep that up. Grow my company. I started doing blog posts on my website with the videos that I release. So when I release a video on EZBOT or a video where I am the main host in the Patchworks videos, I'm writing blog posts so that people can kind of get my personal opinion on it outside of Patchworks, and also just to share a little bit more of my thoughts on a platform. I mean, this is all I do, and it's all I talk about. It's all I think about. So I figure I share it with people. Maybe drive traffic to my website so people hire me for lessons on their Elektron boxes. Because I'm always down to do that. Those are kind of the big goals. My cable company is probably the biggest one. It's a slow burn. I'm always slowly working on it. All right, so I'm going to play some music. We've been talking now for 40 minutes or something already. 48 minutes of straight up Matt talking, easy talk. And I think we should hear some music. We haven't heard any music at all. So, all right. We're skipping over to a track. This is using my Performance Template 2.2, something you can get. Links in the video description, links in the stream description. I already got that going. This is a kind of a rock and roll indie rock song. That's the vibe that I feel with it. And so typically with electronic music, oftentimes, not typically with electronic music, I don't talk that's not how people talk. And that's also not true. I don't know what is typical in electronic music. What I noticed and what I think is that often in electronic music, we don't go from pattern 1 to pattern 2 to pattern 1, right? We don't usually go from one pattern to the next and return to that pattern. That's more prevalent in singer-songwriter music or just rock music or whatever, where you're going verse, bridge, chorus, crescendo, outro, right? That's not super common with techno or house. It's usually kind of just patterns, and you're playing with frequencies and elements, and we're doing this build up and giving people an experience so they can dance. But this song is an EZBOT song, and it's not a techno or house song. It's kind of an electro house track. And I'm going to totally, F it up super hard right in front of you guys here live on stream because it's a hard song to play and it's hard for me to remember exactly how to do it. But the way the song works is it does go pattern 5, to pattern 6, to pattern 5, to pattern 7, to pattern 8, and that sounds totally insane. Let me see. Hold on here. No, I don't want to load the song. Oops. I want to go into my... What do I want to do? Pattern. Reload from project. Whole pattern. Yes. So sadly, what I've just realized is the very end of this song, which is like my favorite part of the song, I have apparently accidentally saved over some sort of... I have this backed up on my computer, so it's not like an actual loss. But apparently, I saved a Control-All thing or something. Let's see. Super bummer. Well, that was the one I really wanted to show off, and that like ending is really the best part of the whole song. Let's see if I can figure out what did I do to it. Is it here? Oh, it's here. Maybe I didn't screw it up. Let's see. Project, load project. Yes, I don't care if changes are lost. God only knows the hell it is to go through all of your sounds. Look at the stuttering. It's dying, it's like... Hey, whoa. Yes! Okay, we get to play the song. Nothing screwed up. Thank God. It's literally stressing me out. I was like, I'm gonna have to go back in. I'm gonna have to reload every one of these backups. I'm gonna have to like wipe these and reload. That would have sucked. Okay, let's play the song. All right. Ta-da! So that's one of my favorite tracks to play, and I actually think I played it pretty well. I wish I had played it that well at the show. So that was a verse, chorus, or intro to second verse or second part of the song, back to the second one where I bring in these lead lines. Then we move over to here. So let's go back over the track. We start here. We don't have these auxiliary synths playing. Pretty chill. We start bringing in some more sounds. Bring in these synthesizers. Sounds good, it's fun. Then we go to the next pattern, which is playing similar, but it's clearly a different root note for it. Totally a part of the song. We have this lead. This lead right here is a synthesizer sound. Hang on here. I synthesized this on the Dig Attack. Sounds sick. I think it sounds sick. Like, the synth sounds that I've made on the Dig Attack, the presets I've made for synthesizers specifically, are off the chain. So we bring in this lead sound. It's an 8-bar lead sound, so it changes throughout 8 bars. Pan, pan. We go back to pattern 1. We bring in that lead sound now over pattern 1. And sounds cool. Then we go to our breakdown and build up. Here's our build. This is our breakdown. A nice little vocal sound, keep people engaged, because voices really keep people paying attention to music. Nice stuttering hat, taking advantage of trigger conditions and LFOs on the decay time. And then we have that lead sound that will come back in. It's super fat. And lastly, the crescendo of the whole song is a 4-bar loop. You record this pattern, a 4-bar loop of it, so we hit yes. It's recording. Make sure we're in part 2, right here. And that effect is a pitch riser, but the pitch riser is synced to the clock, and it goes up about an octave and ends exactly at the end of 4 bars. So you could have it go twice. I did it the last show, and it does sound cool to have it go twice. It mutes all the other sounds, and you're just hearing the resampled version of what you had in the last 4 bars. It goes up, and then it hits this breakdown. And I love it. I love that crescendo into that breakdown. It's a tempo change. It goes from what's the tempo here? So the original tempo is 122 BPM, I guess. Let me see. 132 BPM. And then so huge tempo change. It's really cool. Super effective, and I love it dearly. If it was 132, shouldn't it be 65? The tempo should be 65. This should be 66. Right? Should be 66. This must have gotten bumped. Yeah, there we go. It got bumped. Okay. Should probably see if I reload my part. Okay, cool. It stays. Go ahead and just save that. Save it. Save your projects. Super important. So yeah, that's one of my favorite songs to perform live, and there's 4 patterns for it. I don't always write in 4 patterns, but for that kind of music, I think more patterns the merrier, because people get really bored. Melodic music requires a lot of changes. The more melody you introduce, the more catchy leads and stuff, the more you have to change your music. You can't have those playing over and over again. People latch onto them too quickly and they want to hear something new. That's why techno is so great with its dissonance. That's why it can play forever. That's why you can chill on a pattern and use just weird noises and stuff, because there's nothing for anyone to latch onto but the rhythm. And so they hang on to that rhythm and they just feel the buildups and just kind of dance. It's not the same with electro house or even house music. It has to change. You can't have chords and melodies and work and use music theory. Look what I have sitting here. You know, we sit here with our table of fifths so I can pick out what chords I want to use when I'm writing music. I use stuff like that for my music production. It's super valuable and incredibly helpful for... I went to music school, but I don't remember theory super well. It was a really cool class, and Junkin Smith, you rock if you remember me. But yeah, this little spin dealy does as much for me as my music theory school did. Pretty helpful. Thank you for the kind comments about the tracks. Any relation to the greatly missed Pecora's Pizza, Bradford Bahamas? Why indeed. Yeah. Yes, that's me. That's our family. We are the Pecoras from the great Pecora's Pizza, Capitol Hill, 35 years. A lot of excellent musicians worked there. Yeah, I think my dad says he says the last place Kurt Cobain was seen was in our restaurant. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I know Grohl worked there for a little bit, and McCready used to come in all the time. Whatever. There was a lot of... It's Capitol Hill, Seattle, the grunge era. All those musicians were just floating around there. Cheap pizza, cheap beer. That's what we had. Yes, the answer is yes. I haven't talked about that on stream. No one's ever brought that up before. Who are you? You must be a local, Bradford Bahonis. I'd like to know who you are. Yeah, so what I want to do when I write this new set is I really want to use the polyend play. I'm going to use the Octatrack because I can't not use the Octatrack, but I want to use the polyend play and I want to use my modular, but I keep running into the same issues I always run into with my modular, is that it's just borderline unreliable. And the sound that I get from this, I think it sounds so good. These 4 boxes are perfect. You'll probably never see me. I have an Analog 4, Analog Rhythm, Model Samples, Model Cycles. I have all those boxes, but you'll probably never see me play with them live because I don't need any more, that's for sure. But these ones together, these 3 generating your music, this arranging your music for you, it has a better arranger than even that new cool update. The arranger in here is still better, more powerful, actually useful. The other one's cool for just having your patterns play for you. It's just like a chain arranger. This actually has offsets, so you could have it play the last 16 steps of one of your patterns, and then have it, so you could have it play the first 16 steps of a pattern 8 times for you, and then all of a sudden play the full pattern. You can't do that over here. You can't. You'd have to just literally have another pattern and change it to 16 steps. This can just take your patterns and augment them. Super cool. So it's better at arranging your music. I don't use the arranger for live shows. I do just change patterns. But I have thought about using the arranger to arrange my stuff so that I could just always have my music be like knowing that this arrangement is 37 minutes and 25 seconds long. Be like, okay, you know, I loaded that up in the arranger. You can go into change to another arrangement and grab, like you could see I was actually building an arrangement. Let's see what's it on. Well, it's arranging this song because this is the song I wanted to have it arranged, the one I just shared with you. Turn that back off. Hey. So yeah, I do recommend the Octatrack for an arranger. It's the best arranger that Elektron's made yet. Maybe they'll probably be making more eventually. But yeah, I think like these machines together, if the rumors are true, I know that people saw, like when Syntact was announced, that people were on like Elektronauts being like, did you see there's a copyright for Syntact? But when they said that, there was like, there's a copyright for Syntone. What is Syntone? I don't know. But if Syntone, and I don't know, I don't actually know. Like, I have no idea if it is a thing, or if it's going to be a thing. But if it is a thing, I hope that it is the Syntact. And if it has some drums on it, I hope it's just a few drum sounds and all synth engines. But I hope it has like some sort of true polyphony, some like true polyphonic engine or something on it, where it's not like a paraphonic one. And the difference between paraphonic and polyphonic is paraphonic takes all those, you can have multiple oscillators playing different pitches, and that can generate a chord, right? You can have C, E, G, B to make your 7 chord, right? But they all run into the same filter, and they all run into the same VCA. So they just sound really grouped together. They almost sound like one oscillator because of that. When you have like true polyphony, each one of those notes, each one of those oscillators has its own signal path running through a filter, running through a VCA. And that allows you to play notes at different times and get the full timbre of the sound instead of it going through whatever stage the filter was going through from the previous note or the first note that was hit. So paraphonic stuff is not my bag. I'd rather have polyphony. That's kind of why I stay away from the chord synth engine, other than to use it as like this nice, cool pad sound. And I use this for actual chord generation. Because it actually does it better. It just does it better. That's my opinion. So I remember like earlier, Bad Lux, you said, what's the workflow on Elektron? And I was saying that it's really similar to the workflow on Polyend. So just a really quick breakdown just for you, because you asked, and I like to answer questions when they're asked. The workflow on these machines are all a little bit different, but really what it is once you learn the Elektron sequencer, which is a tracker-esque type sequencer. In other words, you can save data on a per step basis. You can't interpolate between data on a per step basis. You can use LFOs to interpolate between that data. And interpolate means to like smoothly move between multiple values. So on here, if I had a kick drum set at pitch, 440, and on this one it was set at pitch 455, it wouldn't slowly over time between the step 1 and step 2, because time between step 1 and step 2 isn't instantaneous. It lags on steps for a certain amount of time based on the division of how many steps you have over your tempo. So it doesn't move smoothly. It steps, it jumps, it goes up a staircase or down a staircase between values. And that's what you do. You save values on a per step basis in your sequencer. You just hold the steps down. You go into one of these windows here, one of these menus, and you just turn the knobs and it remembers that. And it's actually the same as the Polyend Play, and it's the same as a million other sequencers at this point because everybody's just copying this workflow. And Elektron copied it from LSDJ, probably, or Renoise or whatever. They copied it for sure. They didn't come up with this. They did come up with how they implemented it, which is amazing. They did the best job of implementing the tracker style sequencer, in my opinion, but it wasn't their original idea. Nobody has original ideas anymore. Who knows how many times we've cycled through the universe, and right? Let's just get super weird. I love to get super weird about that. Why no 24, 26-inch Modbang cable? Get out of here. What are you talking about? You mean straight cable? Or you mean right angle? There's 24-inch, 26-inch. There's 24-inch right angles. No 26. What's up, Doug? How you doing, man? Hope you're doing good. EZBOT, since I bit the bullet and bought the ST, I've gotten more inspiration out of one box than any other box. Nice. That's what I like to hear, dude. Yeah, the Syntax is a really fun machine. I was working with a student, and if anybody ever wants to work with me and do a meetup online, I do. It's like, it looks exactly like this. You're welcome to visit my website, and you can look at the testimonials or whatever, but it's exactly like this. We just talk. You know, you get to actually ask me questions directly, and we do some cool stuff. But I was talking with somebody recently, and we were working on the Syntax because they had just gotten a Syntax, and I was showing them how to use it. And we were talking about drums. And like, he's like, should I get a dig attack? Because I'm getting sick of the sounds that I get using this as my drum machine. And it's like my only drum machine. So the rhythm had samples and synthesis. So the rhythm never has redundancy. It never runs out of sounds because you just load new ones in and you blend them between synthesis and samples. It's incredibly powerful. It's the most powerful drum machine, sound designing drum machine out in hardware. There's not one more powerful other than the one you'd build yourself in your modular synth. In terms of like the newest and fastest drum machine, I'd say the Polyamp Play. Probably as just strictly as a drum machine is probably one of the best drum machines out right now. That's the Polyamp Play. But that's just drum machine, no sound design, none of that stuff. Dig Attack does sound design, does synthesis, it does sampling. It's a different machine. So if you're looking for that stuff, stay with the Dig Attack. But anyway, this thing we were talking about with the Syntax was, should you get a Dig Attack because the sounds are getting stale? And my answer was yes, you do want to Dig Attack. I think even if you like the sounds in your Syntax, often like there's not too, most of the drum engines live on the analog tracks and you only get one filter. So how do you carve off that super crazy low end kick? You don't get to. You run it into the effects track and then you use up a high pass filter for that. You don't want to do that. That's a waste. It's a waste of your effects track. So you just like, sometimes you end up like making these weird adjustments because you don't have simple filtering like you do on a Dig Attack where you have two filters. You can just load a sample of your favorite drum sound and then work on that. So I think it's awesome as it does everything and you can make all music. But I think if you were like a workhorse music production beast, I do think you want to pair it with a sampler or sample player because you're going to get similar sounds really often with your drum machines. Even with expert sound design, you're still like, you'll just be like, it's just kind of a variation of something that you've already done before. It'll be like, oh, it's kind of like that kick I always do. You know, if you're like me and you like the sound of a tennis ball kick, like once you find it in here, that's the one that like, you can't make a variation of it. I don't know. Forgive me, Elektron. Forgive me, Syntax. Yeah, in your last track, or wait a second. Everything's a remix. Yeah, everything's a remix. Yeah. Non-Cobalt Blue. I'm out, dude. Calderwood. I'm out of Cobalt Blue. That's why. What stand are you using to angle your modular like that? I am not using a stand. That's the actual modular case. It has little legs. It's the IntelliGel 1047U case. In your last track, you were in the last track, were some boxes going on halftime to the master to the octatrack? Yes, a lot of tracks are going halftime to the master. So if you want to do 8 bars, and I know you do, you use halftime. You set the track length to 64 steps, and then you set it to halftime. And then there's a couple of tricks you can do. So like we do have, like let's go to a pattern over here on the Dig Attack. Let me see. Okay, so we got like these default sounds. We'll make it per track. 64 steps. Okay, so if I want, let's like load like some sort of. Some sounds that I've synthesized on here. All right, if I want to have on the one, on the one beat of every 4 bars, a new note played. Not every 4 bars, but across 8 bars. This is what I would do. I would half time this track, and I'd go in and I'd put down a note, and then I would copy that note, I'd paste it, I'd change it to a new note. Then I would micro time that note back. I know you can't see it super well, it's probably small on your screen, hopefully it's in focus. I'd micro time it back over. And I didn't really check to see if things were in focus, but it looks like it is. Anyway, micro time it back over, go into your trig settings, set your trig condition to 2 of 2, and this trig condition to 1 of 1. And these notes will take turns playing on this step. So you could do that with just 4 bars, but with 8 bars, when you have it at halftime, we can do this twice. So I can copy this and go here and paste it and have this be another note. Let's just throw some kicks down. Some random hats, change the volume a little bit. Everybody's favorite kick and hat sample. Oh, it did the same note? Come on. That was just dumb luck. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I have to have my master length at 128. So, that was silly. All right, let's do it again. So, of course, if it's at half scale, you have to double your master length so that it plays longer. So now we're gonna hear several different notes across 128 steps with the fidelity of it being 64 steps that we can work on here on the sequence. Right, so we have that note, and then we have. So if I wanted to get more notes in, we can make it 256 steps long, we could divide it again, and that's how you can get like some really deep variations in your tracks by just using trig conditions and changing the master length and dividing the track in half. So something that you do want to know, or you do want to do, like we'll just do this with the hi-hats really quick. Let me clear these out. Say I did that with these hats and I did half scale here. It's quarter scale. If I did half scale here, I can do a retrigger, set that retrigger. You want to retrigger the length. If I want this to retrigger for 16 steps or for this entire grid length, which is actually 32 steps, right? I'd want to set this to 32. Because this actually equals 32. But this rate of retrigger, it says 16. I know you probably can't see it well. It says 16th notes. It's going to play at 16th notes. So this is unaffected by the time division. There we go. So you can do stuff like that. So we can do some weird stuff. We could change the rate to like 12. That's pretty cool. And it does that for 16 steps, or... So even if you have, because when you do a division, right, we divide the track time length down, that's where retrigger becomes super useful because it allows us to still get to put in notes in between these steps, because this to here is now twice the amount of time it takes for you to get to here. And like I was saying with your sequencer, there's no interpolation, it's a jump. So we have it's a bigger jump now between these steps. With a retrigger, our sounds can retrigger at a time in between these steps, which is something that is harder and harder to do the more clock divisions you do on your track. Beautiful girls here, 69 XXX for life. Whoa. Hello. Funny enough, I've had a dig attack for 4 years. Wait, let me see. Color with new instrument sequencer plugin from Force Company. Oh yeah. S. Yeah, it does. It looks really cool. I probably just pick it up, never use it just to support him. Orion87. Funny enough, I've had Dig Attack for 4 years and took a long hiatus. Randomly started following you and started to fall in love with my tact again. Thanks. Still not confident to get in the Octa yet. That's fair. Well, if you ever need help, you hit me up. Brian Bites. If you have a Dig Attack and a play, any reason to get an OT? Absolutely. I'm out of bubbly, Calderwood. Keep calling me out on all these things, man. I'm out of the bubbles. Yeah, do you want an OT? Yeah. I mean, I'm not using the OT to do anything that the Dig Attack and the Polyam Play can't do anything that the OT can do. Stereo sampler, stereo sampling. Neither one of those do those things. 8 tracks of MIDI sequencing with an arpeggiator. Polyam Play got the 8 track sequencing. I don't think it has an arpeggiator. No arpeggiator. Processes it in external audio up to 4 different devices. So 4 mono machines or 2 stereo or 1 stereo and 2 mono. With effects and a crossfader. Yeah. I'll never not use an Octatrack. It's literally it's my mixer. It's my performance mixer. So I hope that answers your question. You gotta get an Octatrack. Get an Octatrack, download my template. It'll just make your life so easy for for performing, or just for screwing around in your room and like actually having effects to play with. I was thinking about it, like in terms of cost per effect, you have a DB4 is the closest thing to the Octatrack you're gonna get, and you have the RMX 1000 by Pioneer. Other closest thing to the Octatrack. We're talking excluding your computer, all right? So computer geeks, stay out of this one. In terms of hardware, those are the closest that you're gonna get, DB4 and the Pioneer, RMX 100. RMX 1000. The RMX 1000 has a lot of effects, a lot of cool stuff, good stutter effects. The sound effects on it, definitely better than the Octatracks. Customizable, mildly, through a program that you can put on your computer. So you can do some customization. Customizable like this, not at all. Not like this gets customized. The fidelity on it, higher? Yes, much higher. DB4 fidelity, better than all of them. It's the best sounding of them all. It's very expensive. It's more expensive than your Octatrack. That RMX 1000 is $1,000. Almost as expensive as your Octatrack. Only processes, wait for it, 1 instrument at a time. 1 stereo input. That's all it can do. So you have to sum all of your audio into a mixer, run it through the DMX or Pioneer RMX 1000. Like, no, I can't do that. I have to have separate effects. I have to, for the melody stuff, you can't have, the melody doesn't want what the drums want. So not a fan of that. I do think that thing's really cool. I'd love to have one, but they're $1,000 or whatever, close to that. Not gonna do it. The DB4, would I like to have that? Yes, I would love to have that. It's huge. It's heavy. It's expensive. Is it going to change my workflow? Probably. It's changed it up a little bit, but it's really already getting done here in the Octatrack. So I do wish the Octatrack, would get a hardware update, like a real one, compared to the Mark 1 to Mark 2. They added balanced in and outs. Yeah, sure, I do like that. All of my cable, I am using balanced in and out, except for this. I'm sampling from unbalanced cables, which is a problem because you can hear that. Just you hear it because you can hear ground noise easier. But you want to use balanced cables. You have balanced in and outs, you got to use balanced cables. You can use unbalanced. You're going to have better sound quality if you use balanced. Signals are going to be louder and cleaner. So do that. Would Play replace Dig Attack or Syntact in the setup for a gig? Syntact. If I had to choose. So Play wouldn't replace these boxes. Play would replace them all. Sorry, keyboard. I wouldn't use any of these boxes with the Play, because if I use the Play, I'm going to use my modular, and then I'm not gigging out with 10 boxes to play a couple of songs. That's crazy. This is already quite a bit to set up. It's fast. I have everything taped, under the table, everything taped together. So it's just I just unplug it all at once. But the Polyam Play would be matched with other things. I've actually been thinking about getting some Roland boutiques. So the JX08 and the JX whatever it is, JX8 or something, and the JD08. The new boutiques have a massive amount of polyphony, and they're multi-timbral. So one of the reasons why people really like the Access Virus, which is an amazing sounding virtual analog synthesizer, it has multi-timbrality, meaning I can use multiple patches at once to play different sounds on different MIDI channels. So I can treat it like multiple synthesizers. It's a huge deal. That's what all of these boxes do. The Digitact is a multi-timbral, 8-voice sample player and synthesizer, and so is the Digatone. It's an 8-voice, 4-track multi-timbrality, and the Syntact is a 12-track multi-timbral synthesizer. So all of the stuff is multi-timbral. I like multi-timbral. I want more multi-timbral. The JD and the JX are both multi-timbral, but with way more polyphony and with classic sounds that you really can't get here. I can't get any of the sounds from the JX or any of the sounds from the Digatone that I can get from a JD or a JX or an Access Virus. I really can't. Digatone sounds like the Digatone. There's no getting away from the Digatone sounding like the Digatone. And I do love the Digatone, but I'm saying, like, you might want another instrument that does some similar features that the Digatone does, like the JX. JX08 is awesome. Yeah. OT-M3 in the future, for sure. 100% OT-M3 in the future. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. Anytime soon? Absolutely not. Years. We're talking years. They just picked up Rust developers for the Octatrack or for their new Mark III devices. Mark III. They said this. Elektron said this. Not me. They didn't say Octatrack Mark III, but they said for their Mark III devices, they were hiring Rust engineers. I saw that it's on a forum. This isn't from Elektron to me or anything. I'm not spilling beans. And it was, for the new line of devices. So they're developing it in Rust, which is like some sort of C++ variation for audio development, I think. I don't know. I'm not a coder. Somebody else, please correct me so somebody else knows. But anyway, they're developing it Rust. I think these are made in Rust. And they haven't had the new engineers long enough. The OG engineer of the Octatrack, God rest his soul, passed away a long time ago in a car accident. And Daniel Troberg has moved on to ASM, so he works in the Hydrasynth. He's the marketing director or something like that. I forget what he is. He's the other Octafather, so to speak. They're just not there anymore. Those OG developers are gone, so they have to get new developers in to come up with new machines. And I'm sure that they're going to blow our minds. They've been listening to us all for so long. They've been listening to us. And I've had a relationship with Elektron for years where I communicate with them on the phone or by email for years. And I have told them 1,000 times what I want from them. And do I get it from that? Like, I haven't gotten much of what I wanted, but that's because they're on their own. They don't care what I say. Like, they're in Sweden doing what they do. They're big brains over there. They're thinking they're 10 moves ahead of me. So even what I want, they know what I want better than what I want. But hopefully when they do get a Mark III out, they do add some significant CPU updates and maybe 4824 stereo sampling. Whew, that would be amazing. Give me some better effects, please. Give me more effects, but give me some better effects. And give me threshold recording. Anyway, we're not going to do that. We're not having a Mark III conversation. This goes on way too long. Rust's only been around long enough for the Digatone Syntact. So there we go. Thank you, Brian Bites. Somebody knows what they're talking about. Exactly. So we're not seeing an Octatrack Mark III until they've developed it. Could take 10 years. It could literally take 10 years for them to make something that's gonna replace their Octatrack. This is a top seller for Elektron. Like, they're not just gonna drop something and be like, Mark III. We updated it with more more memory, whatever. I don't know. Whatever they do, they better keep it having an SD or flash card of some sort. If I'm limited to a gigabyte or even 10 gigabytes, if I'm limited to any gigabyte data storage amount at all, I'm going to be bummed. I don't want none of that. Just give me cards. I'll buy my storage. More machines for Syntact. Oh yeah, an Overbridge. That would be dope, right? T-shirt. It's a good name. T-shirt. Yeah, there'll be more. Yeah, 10 gigabytes. RIP. More machines for Syntact? I think so. Probably next year. I don't know. They did those 2 now. They have so many machines they have to take care of. Like, I think maybe they're gonna work more on Digatone stuff. I don't know. But I don't think they're gonna be releasing new stuff for the Syntact anytime soon because of the way Elektron releases stuff. They go from machine to machine to machine. They don't stick on one machine and do it over and over again. And the Syntax's not really very buggy by any means. I do think they need to revisit these modifier triggers. I think they're like fairly useless. I don't get it. I think there's a really easy way for these to become super useful. And I hope that they implement that at some point, but I'm not expecting it anytime soon. I don't use them. Other people might use them. I don't use them for pretty much anything. Agree on the modifiers. Yeah, it's easy to agree on. So here's this, just a little bit more music. We've done so much talking tonight, not very much music. So this is a track that's only 1 pattern long, and I was talking with this cat about, how many patterns to make a song and all this stuff, and there's so many different ideas, and everybody's got their own idea about what you should do or how many patterns you should have, or 1 pattern, versus 5 patterns. Should a song be a whole bank of patterns where you have constant changes and it just never gets boring? It's like, sure, yeah, that's a good idea too. This is just 1 pattern. That's the Digatone doing those pretty chords. Right there, to me, I should have changed to something more drastic. So here's what we're gonna do. Resample. So that song is just one pattern long, and I feel like it's not super repetitive. Like, I don't think that was a boring song. I'm doing a lot to make it exciting, but that's just one pattern. Imagine if it was two. Could have gone on for a lot longer. So I'm utilizing some really cool effects in my template during this pattern. Like on part 2, we get to a part where I resample it. After it's done resampling, I can use this effect, which I like. It's playing this side of the mix in reverse, filtering and putting a slight delay, super low time, high feedback delay on the drums. But it totally remixes the song for you. And it sounds really cool. So I think it's dope. I do think that song is cool. It's a very clean mix. I think that mix on this track is super clean. There's not a lot of elements in it. It cuts really well. The drums are like very acoustic sounding, very real sounding drums, I think. Yeah. I'm just playing the same velocity every time, so it sounds a little weird, but anyway, I like them. We didn't write any new music, and we're approaching 2 hours, which is my cutoff mark for my live streams. I feel like it's been a really good stream. We've been super chatty. We did play 2 songs, and we got to talk a lot. And I don't even know what to say. I'm just really glad everybody's here hanging out with me on New Year's Day night. New Year's Day, the evening of New Year's Day. I think that would be probably the best way I could put that. I was about to say goodbye, but some questions are coming in. What's up, Isaac Anthony? My boy. I run a TR-8S and an MC707 into the Octrack. It works well. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, Happy New Year's, guys. You want to see that Paulian play modular gig you're planning? That's exactly what you're working on? Oh. Apple Snapple. Yeah, I want to see it too. I want to see yours. I should get you to play a gig. Wait, you are going to play a gig. I am getting you to play a gig. But I should get you to play a gig with me. That's what I mean. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with my modular system. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't want to play with modular just for the sake of playing with modular. I don't want to do, that's not it. It's not important to me. It's not important to me that I play with modular. It's important to me that I play. And it's important to me that I play with hardware because that's what I like to do. But it's not important to me that I play with modular. I don't have to do that. It's not like this thing for me, personally. What I want is to have the best sounding live performance I can have without using my computer. We're not talking about like going DAW-less. I'm all for the DAW. Do a lot of processing in the DAW. I just mean I don't want to play with a computer. I want to play with this stuff. It's fun. It's a different kind of headspace I go into. Blah, blah, blah. You already know this because that's why you're here. That's why you're doing this too. But I'm not going to break my skull trying to make a modular set work. Everybody I see, every time somebody plays a modular set, if they're sequencing it on their modular with like a Metropolis or some sort of random sequencer or whatever, their songs sound cool and all, but it really is just the same song for 30 minutes. Like, even if it changes the notes, it's the same. I don't know. There's something about it that is the same often. Everything's pre-patched. You can't really change the patches out. The instruments in a modular system aren't always like, without them being paired with other modules, you are limited to what that module has. Like if you're using a Bacillus Aeternus, for instance, super common module. If you don't pair a Bacillus iteratus with some other modules, you're going to have the same sounds coming from that Bacillus, just over and over. And yeah, it makes a lot of different sounds, but they're all the same. Like it's all the same synthesis technique, and so you kind of get a lot of the same sounds from it. It's very metallic, very punchy. I love it. I love the Bacillus iteratus. It's one of my favorite Eurorack modules of all time. I do think if you had like 5 of them, it would be legit. I do have a case built out on a table, out of view, that is Bacillus, Manus, Laquelic, Metron, 2 Volterras, and just some LFOs and stuff for modulation. And I haven't used it yet. It's just built sitting there. I haven't even turned it on because I've been just doing this stuff. But I do think that would be a cool case. Anyway, my whole point was that modular is amazing, and I love it. But I do think you want to integrate it with other things. Like, for instance, I have the Poly and Play, right? And it's hooked up to my modular. This random sequence, which isn't amazing. The sequence I have on the actual Nerd sequencer in my case is a better version, but I was playing with this sequencer. I guess really quickly I could just show this off. This is kind of cool. Let me just get this out of the way. I just want to show you how incredibly easy it is. Wait, can I do this? No, we gotta go like this. I didn't have to do any of that. Just scoot over here. Get this. Oh, the battery died. We were wondering, when's the battery gonna die on the Oxy one? It is dead. Battery's dead. We're all dead. We're all gonna die now. Okay. You can kind of see it. So check this out. I can just highlight this pattern, and I can go into fill, and I can do like a Euclidean sequence. So you change the different types of fills that you want to do. You choose the number of events. I don't know if you're familiar with Euclidean sequencing. Like Mr. Euclid and Brian Eno teamed up in their minds, but Brian Eno really just took Euclid's concepts and said, okay, if I turn this into some sort of sequencer, especially for percussion, and you take a amount of steps and an amount of events, and you try to evenly space those steps, those events within the amount of steps. That's Euclidean sequencing. That's all it is. So if you give it 10 steps and I hit fill, if I give it 6 steps, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It tries to evenly space them around each other. And if I give it more, right here, 8, it goes 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. But if I go 9, we get 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1. So we get a different sequence. But what's cool on the Poly and Play is I can highlight this sequence, go into randomize between 1 octave, random sequence, and if I like what I made, I hit save, and I can do it again. We could add some new notes. We could copy this note. I could either hit copy, I can hold it down, or I can hit copy. Why does this sound so like goofy, silly? Hang on. So it does have scales. We're in C minor, which is pretty common. Doesn't even matter. Hold on, let's go here. Whatever, I'm getting lost in this. That's just me playing with plats. I don't even think it's tuned to the same... I don't think it's tuned to the Mavis. But anyway, it's super easy to write music on here. You just literally just highlight it and just have it randomly generate stuff and then go in and edit the random generation. So it's a different way to work on stuff. And I think that's what, I forget who said it. But was saying that it inspires you to write music. The Poly and Play inspires you to write music. The Elektron stuff allows you to express yourself in a different way. This inspires new sounds and allows you to express yourself, but these ones are a little different. There's a lot more in-depth sound design that's happening. That's why I think this is better as a drum machine. And I'm going to elaborate that on a YouTube video, like why it's so great as a drum machine, why you want to use it as a drum machine versus why you want to use it as what we use the dig attack for, which is like everything. We just do everything on the dig attack. Which you can do here, but you can't do the kind of stuff that we do on the dig attack on the Poly and Play. You just can't. It doesn't have the options. It doesn't have envelopes. It doesn't have LFOs. So how can you do the same things? You just can't. Okay. I am so happy to have done this with you guys. And guys, gals, everything, everybody, every kind. And I'm going to go. I'm going to go and do stuff, other stuff. I don't know what it is I'm going to do, but I'm going to do other stuff because I've been talking a lot. And I'm just real happy you're here. My name's Matthew, aka EZBOT. I try and do these streams every Sunday. I was going to do, sometime on Sunday, usually around 7 o'clock, typically. And hey, what's up, Alex? My homie Alex. My BFF's here. And you're welcome to visit me every time. Go ahead and join the Discord if you haven't already. There's I'll put a link in the comments, but you'd find a link to it in the comments section on all of my YouTube videos. So if you want to come and hang out with us, we just hit 2,000 members, pretty big deal. And go in there and be 2,000. Go in there and be 3,000. You can be Andre 3000 in my Discord. And I'd love that. I'd love to have you. And so if you want to join the Discord, visit the Patreon. If you want to get the template, you can go on patreon.com or you can visit my Ko-fi website. There's links for that in the stream description as well. And join me in my conquest to make hardware electronic music what everyone does in the whole world. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. I have no idea. I burnt myself out so far. Talked so much, I burnt myself out. All right, I'm gonna go. I'll see you guys later. Take care. Enjoy this Modbang ad.